There was a school, the Idea Charter Chain, that have been awarded about $200 million in federal funds. Over the years, they got a $67 million grant, another $116 million. Yet, this is some of what they've spent their money on. They had $400,000 going to a luxury box in tickets for Spurs tickets. I don't think you'd see public schools getting a luxury box. They purchased a property from one of their board members for $1.7 million. I don't think a school board member would sell their property to a public school. Another board member got the commission on that sale on over millions of dollars of property. And only after a lot of scrutiny did the CEO back off of a plan to lease a private jet for $2 million a year over 6 years. So I guess my question on this terrible failure rate we have with charter schools that you're still advocating for, just a yes or no, do you think charter schools who receive federal funding should be allowed to use those funds to purchase private jets?
Well, Congressman,
yes or no
I'm not,
question.
no, it's not a yes or no question. It's
well,
not
yeah,
a yes
actually
or
it
no
is.
answer.
Actually, it really is. It's the definition
actually,
of a yes or
I
no
have a
question.
few things to say about the things that you
but-
said about
but
charter
Can you
schools.
answer my question, please, Secretary? Do you
I
think
have a few
federal
things
funds,
to say about what you said about charter
reclaiming
schools.
my time, Madam Secretary.
The
reclaiming
report-
my time.
no,
It's
I'm
a yes
sorry.
or no question I'm
The
giving you.
report that you referenced has
I
been
didn't ask
totally
you about the
debunked as
report.
propaganda. Fewer than 2%
Madam
of the
Secretary,
schools
reclaiming my time.
didn't open.
I gave you the courtesy of making sure I could even say your name correct. Give me the courtesy of answering my question.
I appreciate that,
A
but
yes
if you're
or no
asking
question,
me a question, I need to
yeah,
have a chance
but I'm
to
answering
answer.
you a question with a yes or no answer. It's really that simple. If the Secretary of Education can't answer a yes or no question, I don't know why you can be the Secretary. Do you think federal funding should go to a school that uses it to buy a private jet? That's a yes or no question.
It's a very hypothetical question
my
that is
God.
a
No, it's
obviously
an
a
actual
no
question.
no
It's an
answer.
actual
There is
question.
no
It's-
funding going to charter schools that would even address something
You think,
like that.
another yes or
Let-
no, that they
no,
should be able to put money
let
to
me
a
just
box
say,
at a professional
charter schools are
order.
public schools.
Madam Secretary, reclaiming my
Charter
time.
schools are
Reclaiming my
doing
time.
a great job for the
Reclaiming
families that
my
are
time.
choosing them, and there are a million
Madam
families
Secretary.
on the wait list
Madam
to go to
Secretary,
charter
just
schools.
talking over someone isn't an answer, just so you know. And yes or no often is when it's asked in a yes or no format.
You're
because
wrong
if
about
they're not
charter
performing
schools.
academically, yeah, but if 40% are closing down that you're giving grants to,
That is
that's a
not
waste
true.
of public
That has been a
resources.
totally debunked report. It was nothing but propaganda by an individual who has an in for charter schools.
So what percent of charter schools are failing? Do you have an idea? A number?
I
Any
don't
number?
have a state.
You're the Secretary of
national.
Education and you don't have this? You know this report's
Charter
wrong,
schools
but you don't
are
have a number?
chartered by states.
Yeah,
They
but-
are not chartered by the
but
federal
you know
government.
that number's not right, but you don't have a correct number. Is that what you're telling
What
me?
I know is parents and families
So you
are
don't know.
choosing to
So you
send their
don't know the
children to
answer.
charter schools.
That's a yes or no, so you don't know the answer.
Parents and children
It's a yes or
are
no, so
going
you
to
don't
charter
know the
schools by
answer.
choice, and
I
there
think
are
I
a
have the
million
answer.
more
I think I
families
have
on
the
charter
answer.
school
Thank
wait
you.
lists.
It's one thing for Education Secretary Betsy DeVos to be against public education in this country, but to shill for charter schools so shamelessly that she's not even capable of saying that charter schools that receive federal funding shouldn't be able to purchase private jets is beyond the pale. Right off the bat, I feel like it's probably important to note that Betsy DeVos's husband founded a charter school, which might help lend some clarity around why DeVos cannot bring herself to say that schools using funding to buy their executives private jets might, not be a great look. Charter schools are publicly funded but privately managed, meaning that your tax dollars pay for them, but they're completely unaccountable to the public in the way that public schools are, which is why we never hear about public school principals buying $400,000 worth of Spurs tickets, and yet, shockingly, that's not the case with charter school executives. According to data available on DeVos's own website, through a program called the Department of Education's Charter Schools Program, or CSP, there have been 5,265 charter schools that have received federal funding since 2001. Of those, only 3,138 charter schools were still open as of the 2016 school year, meaning that 2,127 either never opened or have been closed, which is a more than 40% failure rate for charter schools that receive federal grants. That means that your tax dollars were thrown into a program with not only a 40% failure rate, but where money is being spent on jets and basketball tickets. And yet, we're supposed to believe that this is in the best interest of our nation's kids and not the adults sitting courtside. Got it. Now, DeVos tries to claim that this reporting, which, again, was based on simple data available from the Department of Education's own website, is incorrect. but she has no numbers to point to otherwise. So she apparently has the factual information that no, 40% of charter schools aren't failing, but zero information as to what the actual number of failing charter schools is, which, I'll tell you what, is super convenient. The truth is that yes, charter schools do either shut down or fail to even open at a shocking rate. Some that receive grants discriminate illegally against students in their admissions process. They have been rife with mismanagement, poor performance, lack of enrollment, or fraud. Some schools, such as Glidden Class Act in Wisconsin, didn't even enroll any students until 2 years after it began receiving grants. At which point, after getting a total of $425,000, they finally enrolled a whopping 5 students. That school eventually shut down in 2009 before reopening 15 miles down the road in 2011 under a different name when it received a $250,000 federal grant to service 8 students. That number dropped to 1 student in 2012, and by 2015, there were 0. Once again, your tax dollars, managed by billionaire Betsy DeVos, hard at work. In other words, these schools have no educational oversight, no accountability, and are rife with fraud. They have been a drain in our system to the tune of more than $1 billion. And because of her conflict of interest, not only is this of no concern to Betsy DeVos, but she's actually said that we need traditional public schools to be held to the same accountability standard as charter schools. Yes, I beg our local public school superintendents across the country, please make sure that 40% of your schools are shuttered while dropping hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on luxury jets and Spurs tickets. And by the way, under DeVos's leadership, the Department of Education considers a charter school to be a success as long as it makes it to year 3. And of course they can make it to year 3, considering they're being propped up by hundreds of thousands of dollars of federal money, sometimes with no students. I don't think there's anyone out there who'd be in a hurry to shut down their quote-unquote school when they're raking in $250,000 and don't even have to worry about anyone showing up. The simple fact is that these numbers surrounding charter schools speak for themselves. But what also speaks for itself is where Betsy DeVos's loyalties lie. And that's not with the students, but with federally subsidizing an industry rife with fraud and abuse and mismanagement so that a few rich executives can continue to rake in our tax dollars to fund their lavish lifestyles. And even a charter school education in this country can show you that that's nothing more than yet another Trump administration scheme to help the rich at the expense of everyone else.